Hi, welcome to today's video. My name is Paul. So today, going to be watching me doing this somewhat abstract landscape painting. This is actually not recent footage. This is from a few weeks ago, maybe a month or so ago. The reason is that recently I haven't recorded myself painting so much, especially not for YouTube. I've been busy trying to put together an online course, just a course on in loose impressionist watercolor painting. And so most of the recording I've been doing has been for that rather than for YouTube. And those online courses, they take up a lot of time. There's quite a bit of work goes into them. And of course I want it to be as good of a course as as I'm capable of producing. So yeah, long story long, I haven't been recording as much painting for YouTube as I would like recently. But also, this time of the year is also a little bit tricky because November, December is very dark months here in Ireland, especially in the north of Ireland. And this little studio that I have has just the one window. So when it's a gloomy, wet November day, and we've had quite a few of those the last week, inside the studio is actually quite dark, and the little camcorder that I have it can't handle the low light levels. I don't have all the fancy setup that you see with some more professional YouTubers with all the lighting and things. I don't have all of that. So yeah, this is why it's a slightly older recording. As well as watching me doing this, I also wanted to sort of ramble on about how I got into art, how I quit art, and then how I sort of get back into it again. I don't know if the story is of any interest to anybody, but I'm going to tell it anyway. So I get into art, I suppose, a bit later than most people. I remember I was sort of early 20s when I got into it. After university, I got a job in Japan. I was teaching English, mostly to adults, mostly to business people, people who needed English for their job, sort of thing. Many of them were doing overseas travels and sales visits and things like that. So anyway, I found out that being able to draw simple cartoons on a whiteboard or a blackboard was sometimes the quickest and easiest way to explain things. So I got myself one of those how to draw a cartoon books and started teaching myself to draw cartoons. And I found it really useful in the job. And at the beginning, that's the only reason really why I did it, was just I thought it might help with the job and make things easier to explain in the classroom. But I found that I actually started really getting into the whole drawing thing, and I enjoyed it. So I started doing it in my free time as well. And then from that, I decided to try other mediums. The cheapest medium probably to get into is charcoal. It's very affordable, and you don't need fancy papers and things. So I just got a sketchbook and a box of charcoal and started doing some figure sketching and portrait stuff and landscapes and things. From that, I then get into using soft pastels. And that allowed me, of course, to get some color into things. Even at that stage, I was very much into impressionist art, and I wanted bright colors, which of course you can't get with standard charcoal. I stayed in Japan for, I guess, about 12, 13 years, something like that. When I came back to Ireland, I was still doing the art, but I sort of moved between jobs. I drifted in and out of a few different jobs, and eventually decided I had to get a proper job, So I got a job in IT and the sort of corporate world. The first job was in an insurance company, and then it was in an investment bank and different things like that. In order to progress in that career, I decided I had to do more studying. I had to get another degree. So I had to go back to university. I couldn't do that full time. I had to do it part time. So that meant working at the weekends and in the evenings. I had no free time whatsoever. So all of the art just stopped. And it took me 5 years to finish that degree. So for 5 years I didn't do any art. I didn't even pick up a pencil. And at the end of those 5 years, unfortunately, I still didn't do any art. I guess I'd gotten out of the habit of doing it, got lazy or whatever after all these years of working at the weekends and in the evenings and during the day and so on. I guess I just wanted a bit of free time and just sit around and do nothing really. So kind of got a bit lazy and still didn't get into the art. And it was another 5 years before I finally got back into it. It was last year around about St. Patrick's Day. St. Patrick's Day, of course, is a national holiday in Ireland, so I had an extra day off. I think it was on Monday or something. I had a 3-day weekend. And the weather wasn't great, so I just stayed at home and decided that I would do a painting. I don't know why I decided this, but anyway, I did, and I found that I still had some old acrylic paint that had been lying around for more than 10 years, and an old canvas. And surprisingly, the paint was still usable. So I was able to complete a small painting. It wasn't great painting, but it was the first one I'd done in 10 years, so it was actually quite good. A good feeling to get a painting done. After that, of course, maybe 4 months later, I had quit the job in IT. After putting all the work into getting the degree and everything, I just quit that job. I hated it. I hated the whole culture around it. So, and then decided to become a professional artist. And I'm laughing because it was sort of a crazy decision, but that's another story for another day, maybe. This is a scan of the final painting that I was doing. I was happy with this one. I like the foreground, the sort of abstract foreground, very loose, and the sort of windswept sky. So I was happy with the final result. So I guess, long story long, if there's any moral to this story, it's even if you haven't done any art for a long time, don't be afraid to get back into it. Or if you've been thinking about maybe starting, let's say, watercolor or soft pastel painting or whatever it is that you'd like to try, just, if you can, just have a go at it. Worst thing that can possibly happen is that you decide it's not for you, but you may find that it's the one thing that you've been looking for years. Okay, if you'd like to subscribe, just click on the big red button below, and hopefully see you in the next video.